Well, greetings everyone, and welcome this Saturday to a very special edition of the Sports Crib. Let's get something out of the way right away because I don't want to be bogged down in this later.
On your turntable.
Don't give a what what's in here, cause I'm a rider, getting down, going hard, baby, we don't stop. Don't give a what what's in here, cause I'm a rider, got the things in that thing, what we gon' fuck. Don't give a what what's in here, cause I'm a rider, getting down, going hard, baby, we don't stop.
Okay, so this means today this is real talk. We're not trying to sugarcoat this. There's no bullshit. This is what's really the hell going on. This is how we really feel. Now, if you can't stand that, you might as well get on off the goddamn podcast right now. Because I'm a little sick, a little tired today. Getting on all my little 75-year-old, soon to be 76 nerves. So anyway, let's talk a little bit about this Ed Reed situation. Greetings, guys, and how's your Saturdays going? Sorry to go through that little rant, but you know. Hey.
Well, I'm just so happy because Demetrius Burgess is here. This is a good day.
Well, we did invite Mr. Scott, so it's but
I mean, that would be a nice bonus too. But I mean, Demetrius.
What's going on, brother? We can't hear you.
He's so excited. His voice has gone into the ultrasonic range. I think you're muted. Try unmuting. I think I might be no.
Yeah, right. Yeah, he is muted right now. You're muted. Unmute yourself.
Okay. Looks like he can't hear us either. So he can't hear us. No, he can hear us. Okay, but he can't be heard. Fascinating. Well, it looks like your mute is on though, because
it says he's muted.
Through the...
It says he's muted, but I can't unmute him from here. I'm not sure what's going on.
Hey,
how about now? How about now? How about now? Okay. Good to be here, guys. Mr. Carroll, good to see you again, man. It's always good to see you.
I am so happy.
So I sent you gentlemen some various videos that I came across concerning Bethune-Cookman and the Ed Reed situation. I sent a little background on the head athletic director, Mr. Reggie Theus.
Correct.
Which
I have several female friends here in Chicago who have some Reggie Theus stories. Is it after dark yet?
We started after dark.
That's what that music.
When you hear the music, that
Reggie Theus enjoyed his Chicago Bulls career. Let me tell you.
Well, wait a minute. See, now I did send some background on Reggie, and Reggie was the man.
Oh God!
Until the man appeared,
right? Until we redefine the man, right?
Yeah, at least he was the man in Camilla's life, Camille's life. But anyway, I'm sure Bill will give us a background and all that.
And all that good stuff. There's some Reggie stories. There's some stuff that, like I said, Reggie enjoyed his Chicago Bulls career. And shout out to Reggie because he made the most of a lot of his opportunities. He's in movies, he's in television shows, he's now an athletic director. He definitely enjoyed the nightlife here in Chicago during his time here. As once again, I've been told by female friends who have no reason to lie. What I will say about all of this, though, because we're supposed to be talking about Ed Reed and his situation, at least two of us have served. And I was told a long time ago, you don't have to salute the man, but you got to salute his rank. So I admire a lot of things about Ed Reed, but he definitely does not understand how large organizations, even small organizations, seem to work. I mean, Bethune-Cookman might not be a Fortune 500 company, or it might not be the 82nd Airborne or the 2nd of the 75th or 101st, any of that, but it's big enough that you cannot curse out your bosses. You cannot put your bosses on Front Street. And you can't do any of this before you sign a contract.
Yeah, right. You don't have the job yet, right?
Where they do that at is like the kids I hear sometimes say. Like I said, I'm a fan of Ed Reed's. I've been a fan of his since he was 18 years of age, and I first, spotted him, and he was this amazing kick returner and punt returner who just happened to be the best safety I'd seen since, Sean Taylor, on the same damn team, but a couple years before. But you just can't. I get he's used to leading from a place of emotion, and as a player, right? Go on with it. That's perfect. Do that. But you now live in the world of PowerPoint presentations. You now live in the world of, whether you like it or not, you may not have to wear a suit, right? Because you're a football coach. But the people you deal with wear suits. The people you deal with want to be dealt with like you are a professional coach, an administrator. Because a coach is more than just a guy that draws up plays, more than just a guy who has guys work out. You are now, because it is college, in pro football, your job is all ball, right? It's football, football, football. But this is college. You are supposed to be developing and leading these young men, and you are the face of the program. You're a Pro Football Hall of Famer. People stopped paying attention to Bethune-Cookman when the Wyatt Bone offense stopped killing people, right? That's the last time anybody, for those, shout out to people who followed Bethune-Cookman in those days. That's the last time anybody paid any damn attention to Nick Collins, Rasheem Mathis, those days. No one has paid any attention to Bethune-Cookman football in about 20 years or close to it.
Right.
This is the biggest thing that happened to Bethune-Cookman football in a very long time. And guess what? It turned left so hard, so fast. And yes, Ed Reed is passionate. He's doing it for the kids, blah, blah, blah. But there's a way to do it for the kids, Ed. There's a way to do it for the kids. And the guy he was sort of trying to pattern himself after, Deion Sanders, would never have done it that way.
Nope.
Say what you want about Deion. One, Deion would wait until the papers were signed before he even showed up. Deion doesn't show up any place. It's the papers are signed and the check clears. Until those two things happen, you could talk to Deion on the phone, maybe, or his people, probably. But you can't get Deion picking up trash, driving around, taking a play. None of that. Deion isn't doing any of that until you have signed papers and transferred electronically into his accounts the agreed upon amount of funds. I love Ed Reed, but you can't do these things.
Yeah. So there's so many layers. I love the topic, first of all. So, hey, thanks for giving me an opportunity to talk about it, especially with Bill Carroll, because I know this is gold. All the layers, and I've been trying to think for about the last 20 minutes, where do I want to start? What if James just says go, like Bill just did? And I knew if Bill went first, he was going to cover the good stuff. So I had to be ready. Right? I had to have some extras in the chamber. So I think about it. I'm still going to talk about what Bill talked about because it's still the overwhelming thing. I'm going to use the word leadership, right? What real leadership is there's a saying, we all have a boss. And that's important. But you got to know who your boss is. And guess what? When you cut those you didn't have a boss yet. Because as Bill has pointed out, you weren't, the ink wasn't dry because you never signed it. But here's the deal. There's a way you manage. It's a class, Bill touched this, I took called Leading with Emotional Intelligence. Great to be emotional. Emotional intelligence is a thing, and people should get to know it. There's a way you manage down to people that report to you, right? You can say certain stuff to them. There's a way you manage your peers, internal peers, external peers. And there's a thing called managing up, right? That is how you deal with your boss. What you simply cannot do, what over everything else, and I've got 7, 8 other points I'd love to hit. The one that I cannot wait is why? What is the goal to go on IG and blast your boss? What were you trying to do? Because what should have happened is in the process of getting a job, and I've been through this a couple of times. I'm sure Bill, we've all been through it, right? There's a point in the process where you're starting to think, okay, I want this job. You feel like they want you. And then there's a point where the HR guy or the HR lady looks at you and says, do you have any questions for us? Right. That's the point where Ed Reed professionally says, Dr. Drake, what is the long-term plan for rebuilding the infrastructure? What is it? Right? How do we do it? What is the long-term plan for increasing alumni donations? What's the plan? Right? Because you're evaluating them as at some point you start evaluating them and they're evaluating you. You don't do that. What you don't do is agree in principle, and then the first day on the job, essentially, metaphorically, day one on the job, go on social media and blast your boss. And even if you've done it, my thinking is Dr. Lawrence Drake is a grown-ass man. I saw him. Right? Grown-ass men don't do that, right? He probably wouldn't have got fired even if the contract was signed. But you made it easy because all they had to do is say, yeah, we're not going to ratify that. Because you know what that's not? That's not leadership. That's not teaching young adults how to handle adversity. When you're in a situation and it's challenges, you don't go on IG and bitch about it. You don't go on IG and blast your boss. You don't. You sit down in a room like a professional. Again, another word Bill used, a professional. And you say, how do we solve this? Because you're supposed to be a part of the solution, right? And you getting on IG, playing booty butt music in the background, beefing with Shannon Sharp, right? Doing all this nonsense, you're not helping solve the problem. Now, you might get 100 kids who love Ed Reed. I don't like Ed Reed, by the way. I was a fan until about a week ago. Now I'm just like, you were about Ed Reed. You were never about the kids. And you can get on IG and talk about they were out protesting. Well, they should be protesting votes. They should be protesting shit happening in Memphis, Tennessee. They should not be out here protesting Ed Reed not getting the head coaching job. And quiet as it's kept, Ed Reed's never been a coach. They're probably going to get a better coach anyway. Right? That's just my appetizer. There's so much here. This was a great topic. But I'm fascinated that a guy, before he's got the job, on day one, blasts his potential new boss. Who the hell does that? Who does that? That makes no sense to me.
You know, Bill, you know, I understand what you're saying, but I was one of those knucklehead guys, and you know how it used to be in the service. You know, if you think you can take that sergeant, well, I'm more than willing to meet you in the back. Well, you know, I threw my little hat in the ring and went out the back because, hey, you know, I'm trying to impress these other people, just like Ed Reed. I'm trying to impress others. I'm trying to show how tough. I'm the toughest motherfucker in this unit. You understand what I'm saying? You know,
and guess what?
You just got things straight.
What does that do for your military career, James?
Well, after getting out of the stockade, you know, hey, you know, but hey, I'm a street guy, so you know, jail.
I get that, and that's cool.
Jail didn't mean nothing to me.
Or if you're an E3 or E4, even.
But the pride, all that chest pumping and everything I did. And when I came out, I didn't know that I came out. Somebody had to tell me that I came out because it wasn't pretty, you know. And so I learned a lesson. Now, Ed Reed, evidently, you know, through all of those games and you know, maybe, just maybe, he had a concussion. And he didn't realize.
Concussion is nothing to laugh at.
No, I mean, you know, maybe he thought it was, you know, a word of mouth contract, you know, but he soon learned, you know, that it wasn't. Now, like you guys, I was a fan of Ed Reed simply because of his toughness, because of the way that he played.
Right, sure.
But Ed Reed, like me, also has to learn that there's a time and place to be tough. And there's a time and a place to be observant and then make decisions based on those observations.
And there's a way to be tough that might not be the point to you way of being tough, right? That calling a bunch of your ex-teammates and saying, can you come and help, is a way to be tough. Making right, exactly. And even if you can't come, can you help? Right? Right? Can you write a check? Can you?
That's what Dion did.
Exactly.
But Deion is smart. Say what we want about him. Yeah. The man, once again, he would not have done any of the things that were done. First, we would have done a bunch of those things, period. But he would not have done anything until his contract was very much signed. And he would have been he would have gotten them on board, right? Yeah. Instead of putting them on Front Street, he would have said, hey, walk with me, right? Because a film crew follows Deion everywhere from the moment he wakes up to the moment he goes to bed anyway. So you got to that's part of the deal if you bring on Deion anyway. There's going to be, everything's in film. You must be okay with that if you're bringing Deion on. And then he says, hey, come with me. Hey, I want to talk about this. I want to ask about that. Hey, one of the team captains told me this. Can you enlighten me as to what's being done, right? But what he wouldn't have done, as was just pointed out, is gone on this very, 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 very impassioned but not very well thought out tirade. And as was pointed out, it's a very sort of strange environment where he chooses to do it. I mean, first in, I guess, what is his coach's golf cart, I guess is where it starts. And then it transitions into what I assume is one of the meeting rooms. And as you pointed out, for whatever reason, with what sounds like somebody's warm-up music to hit the stripper pole. I'm not sure exactly.
But see, now wait a minute, hold it, guys. Now, this is an HBCU college. Are you going to tell me that they don't play music just as provocative? I'm not concerned about the music, I'm
not concerned about it, but it's just a strange choice. Yeah, he tries to deliver this very impassioned and apparently serious message.
Yes.
Why would you choose that at that time? Right. So many things, so many questions unanswered. Look, one, Ed Reed, as was pointed out by Demetrius, needed to have probably worked his way up the ladder, and maybe would have picked up a few things along the way. Because Deion had at least, even though he didn't have some super long coaching resume, had coached some. He, had done work at his prime academy. A whole other show could be done on that. And he had worked with I'm trying to remember if it was the Army All-American Bowl or which one of those high school All-Star games? He was like a sort of semi-permanent presence in coaching for one of those All-Star games. I think it might have been the U.S. Army All-Star game. Either that or the other one. The Under Army. One of those. Either Under Army or U.S. Army. But he was, for years, he did that. And he's done other things. But, even though it wasn't collegiate level, it wasn't consistent like what he's doing now, it wasn't literally his first attempt at coaching. Right. I mean, Ed Reed, I'm sure he's, had his hands on some rookies at Ravens camp or something, but I mean, this is very different. And a football coach, as I said before, at the collegiate level, the head football coach, about 40% of your job is coaching football. About 40. Do you know how many other things you have to do as a head football coach at a college? Even, I'm not talking about Alabama, even at Bethune-Cookman. You've got to go to all these darn fundraisers. You got to go to these, these darn luncheons and talk to the ladies auxiliary of that and the American Legion and name something, right? You go to all these things and you shake hands and you kiss babies, you shake babies, you kiss hands. You spend a lot of your time doing stuff that has nothing to do with, has everything to do with football, but is not directly football related. And of course, obviously you're recruiting and you're, like I said, but the main thing, the biggest thing is you are the face of the program. And the face of the program cannot be a loose cannon. Cannot. That is not negotiable, James. That's not something. You can't sometimes be a loose cannon or occasionally be a loose cannon. You can't be a loose cannon at all. You're the face of the program. You are an administrator, right? So the difference between Ed and you is that you were probably at E4 at most at the time that you were doing what you were doing, maybe less. Probably when you came out of the stockade, less. The difference is Ed is essentially at officer level, right? You can't be doing that stuff. You are management.
And understanding that piece, because what Bill just told you is that you're basically the CEO of a program, right? And to me, the disappointing part, when I said earlier I was a fan and now I'm not, it is the due diligence. Bill Carroll doesn't walk into that situation without knowing, hey, they've got a board of trustees issue here at Bethune-Cookman that almost lost their accreditation, right? Yep. Hey, here are just historic issues that HBCUs have had for years. I need to understand that. He would have known that they had been hit by back-to-back hurricanes. And a lot of this stuff you're talking about is infrastructure, water damage, and they're showing pictures of mold and stuff. What are they supposed to do? That university can't pick up and move from Daytona Beach, Florida. That's where it is, right? He would have done his due diligence. He would have known that. He would know that they have less than 1% alumni donors. What? Less than 1%? Are you kidding me? So if you're going to go loose cannon, you better be an informed loose cannon. So do your IG video. Bash the alumni for not ready. Bash FEMA. BCU still waiting for money for FEMA, right? For
they got $68.1 million.
They didn't get it all, though. That's not all. They got hit by two hurricanes back to back, right?
But they got the money after the hurricanes.
Well, I mean, you're supposed to get it after the hurricanes, but
yeah,
the problem is,
and I understand that $68 million is not going to rebuild.
Not your entire campus.
I understand that also.
Yeah, my point really is Ed Reed didn't know any of that. And he jumps on IG Live and he starts opening his mouth. Now, if you've done your due diligence and you sat down with Dr. Drake and you sat down with Reggie Theus and said, hey, three prongs here. One, we have to fundamentally address the infrastructure, condition of buildings, locker rooms, nutrition plan for the kids, training. We have to address that. Number two, do we have a larger issue around the board of trustees? And if we do, what's the plan there? How do we not let that impact the football program? Because I'm here to build a football program. And if that's impactful, we need a strategy. And number three, the larger thing that many HBCU, Fisk has a similar issue around alumni, right? How do we increase it? If you're bringing me to be Ed Reed, the name, I'm going to do what Bill Carroll said. I'm getting on the phone. Ex-Ravens, I don't care which HBCU you went to. I don't care what school you went to. We used to be players. We're supposed to be boys. I need 50 grand from you. 50 grand from you is nothing, guy who played in the league for 12 years and made $30, $40 million. Right. Call 15 of those guys, right? And you've got enough money to get everybody a helmet, to get everybody their own cleats, because nobody disagrees that the conditions are deplorable. But if you do your due diligence, you understand all 5, 6, 7, 8 of the variables, the hurricanes, the alumni, the supply chain issues. You understand all that stuff. You don't get on IG Live and cut that video. Even if you lose cannon and you're swearing and you got booty butt playing in the background, address the right people. Address it the right way. Like I said, yell at the alumni, yell at FEMA, yell at somebody, and that's still not the right. I wouldn't do that. Dion wouldn't have done that. Dion would have done his due diligence and said, I can't take this job until you implement a plan that assures me these things are going to be addressed. That's what Dion would have done, right? You take the job and then you get on and blast Lawrence Drake like it's his fault. And he's been with the university 2 years, less than 2 years. No, this is deeper. So do your due diligence because that's what leaders do. And quiet as it's kept, Bethune-Cookman had their highest freshman class. People are still going to the school. And next year's going to be bigger. Yep. The incoming classes are growing at BCU despite all these things that around, infrastructure. And they just redid, they got a $3 million locker room project about to kick off. They're doing some things, right? But when you're Ed Reed and you don't do any of that diligence, you look like a fool on IG. And like you said, he didn't learn a lesson because the last video, he compared himself to George Floyd. That told me everything I needed to know. Your situation is not that, my man. I'm sorry. Speak up.
Nor is it Jesus' situation.
Exactly. It is not that. So he doesn't get it, And as Bill has mentioned more than once, he hadn't signed the contract. I can't not keep going back to that. He hadn't signed the contract yet. I wouldn't have done this stuff with the direct deposit already in the bank. I wouldn't have done this. I'm certainly not going to do it without checking my PNC app first. What are you talking about, man? It's disappointing.
Even at my age, I know, if the papers ain't signed, and now you should especially know because most employment are at will contracts. Exactly. Which means that if I wake up in the morning and the boss don't feel good, at will means he doesn't have to give me an explanation.
And I mentioned they would have rescinded that contract even if he had signed it. And
right.
They would have said, "Oh yeah, we made a mistake. Here's a couple of bucks for your time. Get out."
Yeah, I mean, in most contracts, there's some type of clause where if you don't come up to community standards or whatever it is, there's a way to like you say.
Well, I mean, this would have been the definition of conduct unbecoming, right? I didn't go to law school, but I feel pretty sure that
I watched enough episodes of Matlock to know what that is.
I mean, I was my mother's study buddy because I was in 4th grade when she went back to school to become a lawyer. And so I've seen stuff. I've gone to law school, but I read some law. Yeah. And this wouldn't have taken long for even me at about age 10 to have been able to get them out from under its contract.
So for causes, I think is the legal term, right?
He would have definitely been dismissed for cause. And I mean, pick one, right? I mean, yeah,
cause
you in there.
Cause parentheses S. Cause S. Right?
I mean, even being, someone on the other side, I know that, if I don't give, my lawyer a retainer,
right,
or even if I give him a retainer and then go on and tell, everybody about what a bad lawyer he is and all, he has the right to, hey, like you say,
he will no longer be your lawyer.
Give me my money back.
Right.
After he takes out his prorated fee, of course.
Right,
but
it goes from that is my lawyer to that was my lawyer.
Right. Yeah.
But it's no longer my lawyer.
Yeah, he used to be,
Right.
Like,
and so to me, the fact that Ed Reed said he didn't like the condition of his office. I said, bro, that ain't even your office yet. Yeah, and by the way, why didn't you look at the office before you accepted the job? You should have known the condition of your office before you. There's so much backwards here, man. It blows. And by the way, all this is to say there are some issues at Bethune-Cookman University. And Dr. Lawrence Drake will be the first one to tell you that. He will tell you what they are, and he will tell you his plan to work on them. He's acting president, I believe, and maybe they go.
He's interim. He has the interim.
Sorry, yeah. So they know that. So what he did, they already knew, and all he did was, as Bill so eloquently put it at the beginning, he put his boss on Front Street. That has worked exactly 0 times in history, right? To my knowledge, never.
I know I kind of said it jokingly before when I was talking about concussions, but do you think that perhaps Ed Reed may have some mental issues? I mean,
I think Bill got it right. Ed Reed's never been in a professional environment. He's never coached. He doesn't understand protocol, hierarchy, and corporate responsibility. I think it's that simple. I think he's a smart guy. I think he's a hell of a football player. I'm disappointed in all this. He's never been in an environment just to know how you treat your boss. Social media is cool for the kids. Yo, your boss don't want to see you on social media with a BCU hat filming. No, he's not a professional. He's never been a professional except for a professional football player, a professional killer at safety, which we all due respect.
And at the time, that he played, the world of football was in a different place. The world of football was very much more violent than what it is now. But that's not an excuse. But let's delve into a couple other things here, because I sent you a video also from a brother from another, where we had 4 people from HBCU colleges that were discussing Ed Reed and Deion Sanders and HBCUs. Now, one of the panelists said something to me that was kind of interesting, even though I thought it was kind of an asinine statement, but it was true. And that was that there are 106 HBCU colleges, and most of them don't have a football program, which we all know.
Right.
But the ones that do are now trying to make a step forward as far as being financially feasible for their universities. You talk about is it Eddie George at Tennessee State, and a few others. Now, all of these guys have proven that they're responsible. I don't know whether this is Eddie George's first coaching, or whatever, but the remarks that he made and the way that he's handled himself during this particular situation has been admirable. And I say that to say this. I think that some HBUs are also afraid of change. and they wanted, and I mean, the days of just being one of anything are kind of over. You have to be multifaceted now. You have to be able to multitask. And I think that's the same thing for HBCUs. You can't just call yourself a think tank. You can't just call yourself, you know, a specialist in one type of situation, because I think that now not only the educational environment, but the amount of education that you have to take in daily as a member of management also has to be addressed. So I think these HBCUs also need to find a suitable direction where they can all be included. I mean, it was great that Trump donated, all that money, which, he put his name on it. It wasn't really his bill, but but it was great that money was donated. But once again, we see in situations like Bethune-Cookman and other HBCUs that sometimes that money does not become accountable. Now, how would you address the administrations or the alumni of some of these other schools, HBCUs in particular, to come into the 21st century?
Well, I'll start with two things. I am both an HBCU graduate and the son of two HBCU graduates. My mother went to Lincoln. My father went to Norfolk State. I went to Norfolk State. When my father started at Norfolk State, it wasn't even a 4-year institution. It was a 2-year extension campus of Virginia State, the Norfolk Extension campus of Virginia State University. And then he ran out of money, got drafted in the Army, and then came back and finished. And then he went and got his master's degree at Temple, which is how he met my mother. Then he got his PhD at University of North Carolina, and then came back to Norfolk State, taught the rest of his professional career. So I've grown up very much on a HBCU campus. I saw Norfolk State grow tremendously and then overgrow to some extent and then get slapped down and shrink, lose a couple of thousand students at one point. At its largest, it was almost 8,000, and then it's back down to 30-something hundred, I believe, 3,800, something like that, which is probably more manageable. I've had jobs, I used to tutor. Later, I was the night owl at our theater, the George William Clement Brown Theater, which has since been replaced by a new building. I have watched Doug Williams go wild on us in 1977, just kill us in a rainy night game. I've watched Norfolk State change and grow throughout its years. My family has contributed to the Alumni Association. So all the things that were said were true. A lot of things that were said weren't true. But I mean, just so you know, West Point hasn't exactly embraced, like tradition. Hidebound tradition is a lot of places, right? It's not just HBCUs. The difference is what it costs you to be attached to tradition at HBCU. We get screwed out of so much money at the state level, right? The state run HBCUs or the state school HBCUs, like Norfolk State, like Virginia State, like Delaware State, like all the ones that live in Indian State, end up getting maybe not pennies on the dollar, but I'll say dimes and nickels on the dollar per student, per enrollee, compared to their white counterparts. And that's been true since 1860 something. So do the math on that.
Mid-1860s for sure.
Right. So do the math on that. We're talking about, someday somebody, speaking of lawyers, is going to bring the mother of all class action lawsuits against a bunch of states, because the money has got to be well into the billions, maybe trillions, that was deprived of these schools. Is that all of the problem? No, but it's a hell of a lot of it. Think of how much more some of these HBCUs would look like Stanford or Purdue or University of Illinois or Michigan State, or Vanderbilt, if they had all that money that they were getting screwed out of for, by my count, 158 or so years. Yeah. Now, hell, I won't even charge you interest. Just give us the amount we didn't get.
Pay me what you owe me.
Pay me what you owe me. Exactly. Right.
What's the interest on 40 acres and a mule? Because I'm the first in line.
A big number.
It's a big number. So that's one big thing. The other thing, when you talk about being attached to tradition, attached to the past, whatever, part of it is because the past, despite all of the problems that we just discussed, the quote unquote good old days, we would say, there was a time of distinct national pride amongst Black Americans for Morgan State, for Howard, for, at least all the tier 1 HBCUs, Grambling, Southern. And nationally, we had people who knew things about HBCUs in a way that young people don't, quite frankly. Somebody talked about losing recipes. I don't know if these recipes are being lost, but history is sure as hell being lost. That people don't realize that at one point, Howard University's law school was one of the best law schools in the country. I'd say Black law schools. I said law schools in the country. They were putting out people that Harvard or Yale would have been thrilled to say. Constance Baker Motley, she'd be one of the most famous people in America, and she isn't. She's one of the best lawyers this country's ever produced. She came from Howard, right? Her professor, Charles Houston, is one of the best law professors in the history of this nation. Most people don't even know his name. Obviously,
Meharry Medical College, not Black, Meharry Medical.
Right, Meharry, Howard, yeah, these are terrific institutions. But Meharry is also wildly underfunded. I mean, they're constantly having to, have bake sales, have box lunch, whatever it is, silent auction, this. I mean, they're doing everything to keep that damn thing alive when they should be getting funded the same way that Vanderbilt or Tulane or pick a medical school are getting funded. They're not. And I'll land the plane here. The reason that there's so much attachment to our tradition and history is because that is our thing, our tradition and our history. And if we don't have that, then since we don't have all the stuff that predominantly white institutions have, then what the hell do we have, James? So it'd be a lot easier to let go of that if we also had all the stuff that we've been deprived of having, but we don't. So you have to hold back onto this because no one's giving you this. Cross my palms with silver, sir.
Bill, when's the last time the Southern Classic was televised?
Oh, that's a good question, James.
I mean,
not for a while.
Go ahead, Demetrius. I'm just thinking of things that were shown during my time, things that we took pride in. I waited, that Saturday morning, maybe I didn't pop the corn, but I might have had the little mini hot dogs, the potato salad, things that Black people have, But anyway, getting ready to watch that game at 12 or 1 o'clock. And I'm waiting for halftime. Come on now, fans, the sisters.
Like Bill said, that's what we do.
Go ahead,
so I think fundamentally the root of it, Bill just laid out for you in incredible fashion. Very, very good. It is to pay me what you owe me, right? Solving this systemically forever, pay me what you owe me, and we'll build the infrastructure to do it. But we're always fighting. We're always walking uphill, right? But I think another answer to your question is everybody doesn't struggle with the alumni piece of this, right? And there's ways to do it. You would think like largest alumni giving, you would probably assume Spelman, Morehouse, Tuskegee, top 5, right? Historically ranked top 5 types. It's not. It's a school in Orangeburg, South Carolina, and I bet Bill can tell me what it's called. Claflin University. Claflin, damn near 50%. 50% of their alumni donate consistently.
Mind-boggling.
Unheard of. And then small school in Greensboro, I believe. Bennett College, I think, is in Greensboro. Another women's college in Greensboro. 40% donation. What? So go sit down with these people. go together somewhere between Orangeburg, South Carolina, and Greensboro, North Carolina. Find a little town, sit down in a conference room and say, what the hell are you guys doing?
Because we instill it before you graduate. That's the first thing they do.
Exactly.
They're talking about it when you're touring the campus.
Exactly.
You're getting ready to
This is because he touched on it. This is how we sustain, right? And it is not a lack of pride or anything, because I'm sure Fisk and Livingston and all these other schools, they have the kinds of donations they want. But some of it is also just the economic reality of the disproportionate amount of wealth does not lie with people that look like us, right? We know that. That's a piece of it. That's why the pay me what you owe me piece is so important. But a lot of it is different and smarter strategies. And if you know your school is in Daytona Beach, Florida, and you don't intend to lift Bethune-Cookman up and move it to East Lansing, Michigan, which is a bad idea on principle. But if you know it's going to be there, guess what? There's going to be another storm. Why? Because you're in Florida and there's always another storm, right? So we know that's going to happen. So you need an infrastructure strategy. Your buildings need to be built in a certain way. I mean, things that simple. And when I hear these parents talk about the conditions, well, you didn't have to let your kid go there. And they're still on scholarship, by the way. So that part didn't faze me much. But I think as we saw these people talking about it, the unique and special challenges that all HBCUs have is lost in this. And if you acknowledge that first, you can then go to Orangeburg, South Carolina, or Greensboro, North Carolina, or to Spelman or wherever and say, how do we do it? Because they figured it out. They've got some deal where their people are still invested in what Bill said. It's ours. It's ours. They don't teach us about us in the other places. Those of us who decided to go to a state school, I have to figure that out myself. I love Michigan State. I bleed green and white. The stuff I know about people that look like us, I didn't learn in East Lansing, Michigan. I didn't. I learned in Flint, Michigan from Mary and Matt. That's where I learned that from, right? And these schools have developed that, and we have to understand that, right? So I think there's it's a layered thing. There's a foundational pay me what you owe me, and then there's a proactive. Let's figure out the ways to do this. And we're in Daytona Beach, Florida, so we got to do more. We got to do more. And Ed Reed, go ask your millionaire friends to help out instead of cutting a video on a golf cart. The golf cart part pissed me off the most. I don't know why, guys. The fact that he was chilling on a golf cart is what bothered me more than anything. So it could be better, man.
Right. And if Ed was to prove he truly cares, still help Bethune-Cookman whether they hired you or not.
Exactly.
That's when I'll know it's really real, right? So even if they decided to not have you, since you were never truly hired, but did not move forward in the hiring process, if you really, really cared, you really care about the kids, really care about the program, really care about all that stuff, still make those phone calls, right? Still cut a check.
Yeah, or even better, what he could have done, that IG live video this is the simple difference it could have been. He could have been, I am disappointed, I am hurt, I'm disgusted by these conditions and what these kids are going to go through. So guess what? I'm deferring my first 2 years of salary to this, to infrastructure, training facility, or just football stuff, cleats, helmets, training facilities for the kids of this program. And I'm challenging every alum. Hey, Rasheed Mathis. Hey, Nick Collins. Hey, Roger. Sorry, I forgot your last name. But yeah. What are you guys going to do? Where's your checks? That's what you do. You peer pressure. And they don't have the money Ed Reed does. They have the career Ed Reed did, right? And the time that Ed Reed played. But you challenge the alumni to say, I'm going to literally kick in my first 2 years salary because I'm here to build this program. Who's with me? Who's going to help me? You jump up like that scene in Animal House and say some really crazy stuff and then say, who's with me? Even though everything you said was wrong, right? But you do that. Defer your salary. Take some money out of your pocket and don't get on there and start a beef with Shannon Sharp and compare yourself to George Floyd because you just don't get it. And I guess it could be concussions. I don't think so. I think he does not understand what he got himself into, and he handled it horribly. He just handled it badly.
He did. He handled it very badly. But going back to what you had mentioned earlier, maybe it's because I think Bill can probably understand this a little bit more. The first time you make E5, and you have that responsibility of other people's lives, it turns you into a different person.
Sure.
Because you're thinking of more than self. As an individual soldier, you think of self. As command cadre, you think of the people beneath you or under you. Yep. And their welfare becomes more important. Yep. And I think what Ed Reed, like you said, Dion, to my knowledge, did that. He deferred his salary or at least a good portion of his salary while he was coach. So there are times when you have to lead by example, and boy, I really hate to see this, but church is a good example. The pastor gets up, I'm putting the first $5 in the collection tray. Right. Who's going to follow me?
Right. How do you not? Right? How are you sitting there and you don't
and before you know it, the collection plate is full and they're taking money back into, So, sometimes you have to lead by example. You can't just ask, like you say, show me. And I'm not even from Missouri, but show me.
The problem is that's what he thought he was doing. He thought he was leading by example. And the problem, and that's once again the problem with never having coached ever at any level. Is you don't understand it. It's not the same way. It's not don't ask me if I'm hurt, dog, right? That works when you're a player. It does. That works when you're a player, right? That other dog's out, woo-hoo, that works as a player. You're a coach, you're an administrator, you are management. Your emotions should still be a part of what you do. And speaking of things that are put elegantly and beautifully, when you talked about leading with emotional intelligence and understanding that you're managing in 3 different directions at all times, right? You're managing down, you're managing up, and you're managing out constantly. And that really comes to mind as a football coach. Even people who aren't even associated with the program you're managing interviews, right? With people who are not associated in any way directly with your program. But if you're managing those interviews and those media contacts correctly, that helps build your program, right? And you can show a light on things that are problems in such a way that you would have, like I said, the total and complete support and buy-in of your bosses. There's a way to do that. Dion would have shown you that way. And lots of people, not just Dion, but Dion's a good example. Because Dion, say what you want about him. He truly understands how to use the media and not be used by it. He really, really is very clever about what he does and how he does it. Even sometimes, where it kind of almost to a point where it's obvious sometimes, but whether it's obvious or not, it works. I hope that if Ed Reed is serious about coaching, that he starts doing it the real way, right? He works his way up, figures some things out, learns some things. Whether he goes into like the Fritz Pollard Alliance internship program, whether he, makes calls to some of his old friends who are now coaches and says, hey, can I come to training camp and watch what you do? But the way he's tried to do it, right, lets me know how little he understood of how this actually works.
Just go be a DB coach somewhere. That's it. I mean, and while you're at it, take a leadership class. Because I'll give you a simple story of my first leadership role. And it's very simple. I went from being an individual contributor, what we called it, like I was responsible for my stuff, to being the leader of the group, the manager of the group. So now I'm a people manager. And to be frank, I didn't like it because now my success or failure is dependent on them. Right. So my first staff meeting, I show up right at the top of the hour. There's 3 people in there, 7 or 8 of them come strolling in top of the hour. 1 or 2 guys are late. I had 12 member team. Second meeting, 5 minutes early. Same 3 people already there. Same people. Third meeting, I get there 5 minutes early. Everybody's in there. They're there because they saw me. And one of the guys said, we hear everything you say, but we watch everything you do. Right. And going on IG and doing that, if I'm a parent, if I'm Reggie Theus, and for sure if I'm Dr. Lawrence Drake, I see this is how he will lead. This is how he demonstrates when I have adversity. I go on IG Live and I post some bullshit. I blast. I don't try and solve it. I don't call alumni. I don't add to how do we fix it. Focused on me. This is what I'm not happy about. This is what needs to be done. That's not the leadership I want for kids in my program. This is bigger than football. If I'm Dr. Lawrence Drake and I'm sitting at my desk and I watch that video, it's about football. Am I personally offended? Well, me, yeah, I'm from Flint, Michigan. We might have had a talk. I don't care if you're Ed Reed. I'm a grown-ass man. We might have to have a talk, right? But more than anything, this is not, as Bill said, I don't want this to be the face of my program. This is not the character. This is not the way I want kids that come here to see. That's how you handle adversity. And if I got a parent in my office and we're talking about their children, or they're young adults, right? I want to be able to look them in the eye and say, we're going to make your young man or young woman a better person when they leave here than when they got here. Yep. That's not the behavior that's consistent with that, right? And so Dr. Lawrence Drake's job is big. It is enormous. One tiny piece is with Reggie Theus, selecting the face of the football program. And I think they were absolutely right, 100%. They've got other changes. Bethune-Cookman was not perfect. I get that. For anybody who's watching this or seeing this, I'm not anti-Ed Reed. I just watch somebody handle something about as poorly from a professional level. And I've talked enough to Bill Carroll. I've experienced enough of my own career. The first thing Bill talked about when he started this podcast, professionalism. He said that we talk about leadership and professionalism. That's what this was about. It's not about Ed Reed. I don't think he can coach because he's never coached. And Bill has reiterated he should get experience understanding how that works. Go be a DB coach somewhere and watch. And then he will come back with a different mindset. I think that was the biggest part. He's never been a coach. He's never operated in a truly professional environment where he's had to respect protocol. Now, of course, he respected his coaches. That's a different environment, right?
Right.
But that is a demonstration of really bad leadership. And I don't want kids at my school seeing it. I don't want parents who bring their kids to my school to say, can you, and there's a side note, Bethune-Cookman has sponsors. They have partners like Disney. And Dr. Drake said, I got a phone call from Disney. Now, they didn't say fire him. They just said, hey, I'm going to need you to explain what's happening. I can't take that call. If I'm Dr. Lawrence Drake, I'm not taking that call because of you. No, we're going to go find a real coach. Well, now watch the guy they pick. Going to be some dude who's been coaching for 30 years, right? Some respected, somebody we're all going to go, well, damn, can't really argue that selection, right? And that's what this is. This whole thing is really a guy who had no professionalism, doesn't understand how to operate in that environment. And you can take the guy out of insert South Florida town he's probably from, but you can't take that out of the guy. And that's coming from a guy from Flint, Michigan. So I'm not disparaging wherever he's from because I don't even know. He had a choice. He chose to keep it real or whatever the term is now. Because I'm an old man, my socks are black. I'm gonna go yell at some kid out on my grass right now, even though it's covered with snow. But he should have been better. He should have been more professional. He could have handled it better.
Right.
See,
and Ed's actually from St. Rose Parish, Tacoma, Louisiana, which I think per capita is second only to Pago in American Samoa in per capita production of NFL talent.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. So he comes from hotbed. Okay.
But here's the thing, guys. And I appreciate when people talk about, he's from so and so, and he's from so and so, and I'm from Youngstown, Ohio. You guys look up the history of Youngstown, Ohio.
I'm familiar.
But
failing steel mills and the mafia, I might understand, were the two biggest industries, right?
1 and 1A.
and the latter, the former I never worked for. But even in that type of environment, you had to show a certain amount of professionalism. Sure. When I got up in the morning, I put a suit on. You didn't wear jeans. You didn't run out the house with your goddamn flip-flops on. When you got out, you looked professional. You had on a shirt and a tie, and you talked in the proper manner.
Yes.
So, I'm not going along with, that's it. No, look, you learn, you live, and you learn. And if you cannot accept life's lessons, then you become an Ed Reed.
Yep. Congratulations. You're Ed Reed. There's a piece of this too that always, for me, it was simple because I think I was 12 and Matthew Vergis said, that is my last name. I'm just letting you use it. Right? Everything you do is a reflection of me and your mother. And he said, you do something stupid. They don't know who you are. They're going to say, did you hear what Matt's son did? Did you hear what Mary's boy did? Right? That stuck with me. I'm 53 years old. And I remember it to this day. Right? He said, that's my last name. I'm just letting you use it. And I try and treat it as such. I've done my share of things that I would have to apologize to him for. But at the end of the day, if Ed Reed is out here only about Ed Reed, if you take this job and you're not about those kids and that school and trying to make a difference, and that's whatever you think about Deion, from the moment he did it, he was clear. And oh, by the way, incredibly successful. Whatever happens at Colorado doesn't matter to me. What he said he wanted to do was highlight HBCUs. And he did it. He did it on the field and off the field. He wanted to change the lives of young men. He did it. There's a list of them. They got a top recruit to commit to an HBCU. Bill talked about this on the Sports Crib months and months ago. They got like a top 5 in the country recruit to commit to an HBCU, and we were just like, what? And he never, it didn't feel to me anyway, like he was doing it for the glorification of Deion. Because he could have taken any job, any HBCU. He could have done it anywhere, right? He chose that one, which had similar challenges, very similar challenges at Jackson State. And it felt like he was doing it for all the right reasons. And to me, it feels like Ed Reed was doing it for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah. And sort of as an example, Rod Woodson, right? Hall of Fame player, made a nice bit of money as a player, then made another nice piece of money as a television analyst. When he started coaching, he started at the bottom, right? He became a cornerbacks coach, then was a co-defensive coordinator at one point with, I think it was under Del Rio with Ken Norton and Marcus Robertson. You know, he's now an XFL head coach, I guess. We'll assuming the XFL, you know, I'm gonna say the XFL. I'm gonna just claim it. The XFL will play another season at least, and he will be a head coach. But he worked. But he spent about 10 years working his way up, and he's first ballot Hall of Fame type guy. I mean, this is Rod Woodson. Yeah. Like, you can't find, in my mind, more than 3 or 4 defensive backs in the history of football better than Rod Woodson. Right? No. That's a short list of dudes who can be counted on to be in the same room with Rod Woodson.
I got the second one out here, Troy Polamalu. And the work that he's done with youngsters out here, especially wide receivers. But go ahead.
Right. And at no point did he just say, I want to be head coach, right away, right out of the box. He worked his way up. I hope that amongst the things that Ed Reed learns from this, besides don't blast your boss on IG Live before you even sign a contract, which really should be lesson 1. But I hope the other things that he takes away from this is it's okay to learn your craft the slower way, right? You don't have to start out at the top. When he was a player, right, even though he was terrific right out of the box, he wasn't the leader of the team when he shows up to the Ravens. No. They had veterans, Michael McCrary. They obviously Ray beat him there by a couple of years, but they had a strong leadership core, and he was the young guy, super talented young guy, but he was the young guy. He wasn't immediately jumping in the faces of Tony Siragusa and telling them what they were doing wrong. I mean, like, that wasn't how it was going to roll, and he knew better, right? Even as a 21-year-old, he knew you don't do that. You don't get in the face of Ray Lewis. You don't get in the face of Terry Siragusa or Michael McCrary. You don't get in the faces of these guys who've been playing this game for years and tell them how things are going to go now that you're here. Yeah. He knew better at 21. So I don't buy some of this. I mean, yes, he is very inexperienced in this, but he's experienced to some extent in life. And he's experienced in football. And he knew in football, in playing football, that he earned the right to have his voice be heard. Right. He earned that right to be the guy that got guys, to broke down guys and got in guys' faces and said, I need you to play harder. Oh, yeah, I know you're hurt, but I need you to play hurt. He earned that right. He didn't walk in doing that. So if he truly, like I said, wants to help build young men and guide young black men in this very dangerous place called America, then I hope, one, he humbles himself a little, right? And says, oh, I don't have to be the guy right away. I can learn a few things. I hope if he truly believes in some of these he says, that he still writes a big ass check. I hope he still does that. Because one is that will help me to feel better about this. And maybe it shows that he's learning something. If he still writes a big ass check and doesn't just sort of skulk away with his tail between his legs. I mean, he should still kind of do that because his tail probably does belong between his legs. but he should still, if he's committed to something.
Coming from someone that knows Bill, sometimes you have to be humbled. Yeah. I'm just saying. You know.
Here's the cool thing is Bill Carroll just gave him the blueprint for what to do. None of this is rocket science. We just did this in what, an hour? We just figured it all out. Cut a big check. And on that line in the bottom left, where you're supposed what this check is for. I forgot what it actually says. You
Memo.
just write, what's it called?
Usually says memo.
Memo line. You write humility. That's what you write. A big check, and then take the job as defensive backs coordinator at fill in any random school in America. That's what you do. And then after next year, you say, hey, this is what I learned. I didn't know everything I thought I knew, right? And that's it. Challenge other guys to write checks because you know a bunch of rich guys, and you don't need them all to write $1 million checks. Because if you get 30 dudes to write $100,000 checks, that's okay.
That's okay.
Dr. Drake will take all 30 of them and no cash, right? It's fine. Do that.
I understand. He is on good terms with the owner of the Ravens, Steve Bisciotti, who you could potentially ask for $1 million. Just saying.
It's not like he's begging for somebody that doesn't deserve it. You can't quantify the damage 2 hurricanes can do to a campus in Daytona Beach, Florida. Dr. Drake isn't crying wolf. This is serious stuff. And these parents who are talking about their kids having mold in their dorm rooms, Dr. Drake doesn't want that. He didn't ask for that, right?
No,
so
he wasn't running through the dorm sprinkling mold behind him.
Exactly. Throwing it around.
And remember, he inherited this situation.
Exactly.
He's an interim guy. He's not yet. Okay.
So my biggest thing is I think Bill just gave him the blueprint. Cut a nice check. Say just a few words. Don't do it on IG Live, by the way. Say just a few words, right? Go take a job. Because what Bill talked about, that's true in corporate America. I talked about my experience. We all have to work our way up. You guys refer to E5s and E6. I don't know what that means. I got a brother and an uncle who are in the Navy. I don't know what any of that means. I know what it fundamentally means is you start at the bottom. And as Drake once said, now we're here. But you don't just show up here. You start at the bottom before you work your way to there. So take if you're serious. So my contention is he's not. And he's going to continue to post IG Live videos, not taking any accountability for the mistakes he made in this situation. But more than that, still walking around believing he deserves to be given a head coaching job. There are dudes in high schools and small colleges all over this country who've worked their asses off, who would kill to be the head coach at Bethune-Cookman. And you walk in and say, I deserve it. I disagree with you. So just what Bill said, lay it out, and you can redeem all this. In 2 years, I'll like you again.
Yeah, he already has a new video out on YouTube. I'm not sure it's about. I haven't seen it. But, gentlemen, I said the show is only going to be an hour, and we can end it now.
Well, you knew me and Bill were going to be on the show. Why would you even do that? It didn't make no damn sense, James.
Wait a minute. See, there you go. You jumped all over me, and you didn't even get. You pulled the Ed Reed on me. You didn't even give me a chance.
Yeah, didn't do my due diligence.
So, what I was going to say is that we can extend the show if you'd like to talk about what happened in Memphis.
No, I'm going to be honest. Two things for me. One, I could only digest about 1:30, and then it was just too hard for me, right? So, okay. And I have this issue with, I have a brother-in-law who is a lieutenant in the Memphis police force. This is a guy who started dating my sister when I was like 11. This guy's my brother. I love him. I respect him. I admire him. This is my big brother, right? I haven't talked to him yet. My context to truly inform my opinion has to wait. I'm going to see him in a few days or talk to him in a few days. And I couldn't stand too much of it. And it was just simple as, I don't know how a single human being, a child of God, can be okay doing that to another human being. Next layer. I can't process how 6 human beings, children of God, can process doing that to another human being. Then I can't process how 6 black men can dehumanize another black man like that. Because what I saw, and I'm granting I didn't watch it all. There was no chance I was going to get through it. I'm like that. That's not fun for me to watch. I don't like to see it. And what I saw was 6 black men who at some point stopped seeing this man as a human being. Somebody's son, somebody's brother, somebody's friend, somebody's loved one. And I couldn't take it. So I'm not promising you I'm going to watch any more of it. I don't think I need to, because seeing that level of dehumanizing, I'm not sure I can talk about it. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to get on a podcast and give you really good work product on a podcast, because it's just hard for me. That's really hard for me. And my relationship with my brother-in-law is strong. Yeah. And I don't know where I fit. I'm not a defund the police guy. I'm not an all cops are back. I'm not. I love this dude. This dude is a good man and a good cop. Right.
Right.
I don't know what to do with it. Honestly, guys, short version is I don't know how I feel about it yet, James. So I know I can't talk about it.
Well,
Bill, do you? I want to take you back to training, and especially officer supervision.
Yeah.
And I'm going to use the words killing frenzy for one.
Yep.
Which Demetrius is probably not.
I don't.
I'm
glad I'm not.
But
it's not something you want.
But also the responsibility of leadership, because leadership was never called or able or intervened.
Nope. And as Demetrius once again very beautifully stated, there might be a time when I will want to delve more deeply into this. Now is not the time. It's too hard a turn to make after the relatively light fare that we just had. Let me say this. When at the point where he started begging for his mother, right? I was done at that moment, right? That was the moment where I was like, okay, I'm going to need to go for a walk. I'm going to need to talk to my little girl. Call my daughter, right? Something. I need to, like that. So you talked about a failure in leadership. And this is where, several people I've served with, when they got out, they went and joined various and sundry police forces. Sergeant Charlie Clugston, now retired from Maricopa County, where he at one point headed up their SWAT training as a former squad leader of mine. There's so many layers to this, and it goes back so many years, and it feels like Groundhog Day, right? Oh, what horrible thing is it today that we had to watch where some person, usually a Black person, gets their life taken away from them in a way that is incredibly awful. Oh, it's this time, right? What town is it? Oh, it's there this time, and when you are a parent, right, and you have to have these talks, right, about this awful thing and explain to your child, remember when I told you about such and such and this is what this means, right? When I told you, if God forbid you get pulled over, right? Every Black parent has had to have this talk, the if you get pulled over talk about. You can't look away, but you can't look at them, right? You can't, it's this incredibly fine. Truly, you're trying to teach your child to guide a camel through the eye of a needle.
Yep.
You can't be confrontational. You can't move too fast, but you can't move too slow. It's all these things that you have to tell your child to do in these situations. How to be non-threatening, and even then, that won't necessarily save your life, but it's just all that you can control. It's all that you can do. All of us are old enough to remember the thing that was sort of seminal in the thought process of America around police brutality, which has been around forever.
Yeah.
But we all remember the Rodney King trial. We all remember that videotape, that accidental piece of videotape, someone who literally got a video camera for Christmas and was trying it out, right? Yeah. No body cameras in those days. No, video cameras, home video cameras are fairly new. Luckily, this person had a very generous spouse, right? And just by happenstance, was ranging it. How far out can I such and such? Oh, what's that? Right? Blind luck.
Yep.
And so suddenly the other half of America, the rest of America, suddenly saw this thing that everybody figured was an exaggeration, right? They're exaggerating. It can't be that bad, right? We'd all heard that from our white friends or other white people. They weren't friends of ours probably, but we'd heard it that, well, it can't be that bad. And then all of a sudden America saw and said, oh, that looks terrible. That looks bad. That does look bad, right? And then they had to try to rationalize it. Well, he's got priors. He's on PCP. It was always something else to sort of explain it away. And then we've had a trickle, right? Because the technology just allowed it to be a trickle for a while. And that trickle turned to a stream a few years ago. Now that stream's a flood. Thanks to social media, and everybody has a camera on them at all times.
Yeah.
That trickle is now a flood. And people who want to deny that there's not a need for bottom-up, fundamental, ground-shaking, tectonic plate breaking change, I don't know what you're seeing. I mean, like, what are you waiting for? How many more Groundhog Days do you need? And yes, I too have friends on the force. I too have police officers that I like and respect. Maybe not quite as close a relationship as the one that you have with your brother-in-law, but close enough that I would count them as my friends. And I've also been hassled by, and frisked and thrown against a wall and, checked for gang tats and all the stuff that happens. I'm now at an age where it doesn't happen anymore, but it happened relatively regularly through a certain part of my life. So luckily, nothing that elevated to the point where I was afraid for my life, but definitely times when I was nervous, right? And trying not to look too nervous, right? Because if you look nervous, right? It really is, like, truly, like I said, this constant maneuvering and trying to not to go too far in any direction. James, this is an incredibly important subject matter, and I'm going to agree with Demetrius. I am not up for it today. I am not feeling it. I was having a good day. I got to see Demetrius. I was so excited. I was so happy. We got to jump on Ed Reed, which is cool, right? Because he's better than us in so many things. We got to see Jalen today.
Well, let's not end the show on such a somber note. But what would be your final thoughts on Ed Reed? And come on, guys, I got to get predictions for tomorrow.
Okay, we can do predictions.
I got you here. I got to get predictions.
That I can do.
Yeah.
Well, Ed called me, brother. I can help you so much. I will do it for 1/10 of what most people in crisis communications would charge you. Maybe less than 1/10. I will lay out for you the do's and don'ts the next time that you get a job somewhere where people need you to act like you know what you're doing and have some sense. We will start with Common Sense 101 and work our way up to eventually Common Sense 201, and then all up until finally you have real common sense. But on a more serious note, as we've all agreed, start at a place where, one, everybody in the world doesn't see your mistakes. Of course, mistakes that you showed the world. Yeah. So that's a whole other thing. But start someplace, high school, college, wherever. It doesn't matter where, right? Because it doesn't have to be a big name. In fact, it preferably should not be.
Volunteer. There's a word. Volunteer.
That's too good. It's almost too good.
Right. But someplace, hell, you're from a very poor part of Louisiana, Ed. Yeah. I would bet they would be thrilled if you showed up and worked with the kids there and didn't tell anybody.
Yep. Yep.
But whatever it is, wherever you go, build it brick by brick, right? Because one, it'll be more solid. And two, you will have, through the sweat on your brow, realize what it takes to get there, and you will be less reckless with how you treat the opportunity going forward.
Oh, fantastic. So here's mine. Ed, call me because I got Bill's number and I'll give it to you. Right? Because that's it. We've already laid it out. Humility on the memo line of the check. Find a place somewhere that can use your skills and become the defensive backs coach at small Division III school that neither Bill or Bill knows all schools. A school I've never heard of, right? And then brick by brick couldn't have been said better. And the word of the day is reckless. That's the word we should have said an hour and 10 minutes ago. The word of the day is reckless. You will not be reckless because you will have a database of lessons learned. If you don't take the last 2 weeks, file it in an old Rolodex, put it on a spreadsheet, whatever. I don't know if you still use a little tape, something where you can go back and go, oh, damn, I did that. We ain't doing that again. We're not doing that again. Your lessons learned database. And take it from me. I got a massive lessons learned database. I'm going to be honest with you. A lot of the things I've learned were through failure. Failure is an incredible teacher. Starts with the humility on the memo line of the check you write to Bethune-Cookman University. And all the checks, you get all your friends to write. I mean, to me, it's simple. I don't have anything special. Bill laid it out pretty simply. And I think that's the way you do. And by the way, take a class, Leading with Emotional Intelligence. They offer them online. There's a book. It's easy. It will teach you when your emotions are positive and when your emotions are negative, when to use them, when not. when you're doing an IG live video about your new boss, even though you haven't signed the contract, I'm pretty sure the book's going to say, shut your mouth, right? Don't say nothing right there, right? Don't compare yourself to George Floyd
or Jesus.
I need that book also, Demetrius. So you can also send me the information.
I'll send you. I've got it. I needed it. I'm gonna tell you, 32-year-old Demetrius needed it, right? And I read it, and it helped me a ton. And I still need it at times, right? Because that's always a working. When you're a passionate person with the level of energy guys like us have, and you find something that matters to you, sometimes you find yourself in the middle of the china shop. You look in the mirror and you go, damn, I'm a bull. I am a bull right now. You have to be able to dial it back and go, okay, you got to tiptoe out of here, bull, and not try to break all this china, right? Yeah. And I was going to say there's no book on it, but there is, because I read it, and it's fantastic. And that's exactly what Ed Reed means.
Yeah, like I said, I'll be 76 2 weeks from Monday, and I'm still taking anger management. So, yes.
But you recognize that Mike Tomlin is a great football coach, right? Have we acknowledged that yet at 75 and 3/8 or 7/8? We ready to say that yet?
Well, and I also realize that I can't settle all arguments with a 2x4.
There we go. But a lot of them do end. They might not be settled, but they often end.
I'm going to let you know that there's a consequences to your actions if you,
Yep.
I'm going to give you a rattle. You might not get two, but I'm going to give you one. But anyway, that's another.
I'm looking forward to Bill's picks. I want Bill to go first. I might cheat.
Yeah, we've missed Bill on the sports crib these last couple of weeks.
I've missed you guys too. I got to figure some things out scheduling wise. My life has gotten a little too full of things.
And it was actually, Demetrius, I want to tell you, it was actually Bill and Don's idea to move the show. And then Bill doesn't show.
That's called friendship, man. That's some straight up friendship. They moved the date of the show just for me. I will never, ever be able to thank them because the sports crib is a big part of my week.
Yeah, I will.
I had to ask them. I couldn't just change it. I had to ask them. So
that's cool stuff, man. That's good friends right there.
Well, I gotta figure out some compartments and put some things away so I can have more time and space. This is going to be, sometimes we say, these are the best four teams, but these really are the best four teams. Like, these are the best four teams. Like, I love this, that we got the best four teams in football. No offense to the Bills, and a lot of people were like having a coronation for the Bills even before the season began, and I get it. They're well coached. They have a lot of good players. Josh Allen is essentially, a more accurate white Cam Newton. I mean, what's not to love about that?
It's fair.
But there's two things that they still haven't really figured out. One is their running game is still basic, like with Cam Newton, is still basically the quarter, especially in tough, like short yardage, goal line situations, is still your quarterback. Yeah. At some point, you're going to want to develop a power runner. Devin Singletary is very talented. He's a slasher. James Cook, who's Dalvin's even more. I mean, he's about the same size, in fact, slightly bigger, but he runs even
smaller.
Right? But he feels smaller because he doesn't like the middle of the field.
Okay,
that's why he feels smaller, because he tries to bounce everything outside.
Right.
He has to either, get a little more toughness to his running mentality, or they need to find someone else for that tough work. Because as we've seen, if you keep having your quarterback pick up all the tough yards, I mean, the most physical runner on your team is your quarterback. That's not an ideal situation.
So this is what I love about Bill. You asked us to pick the games. He just broke down Buffalo, a team that's already gone. That's classic Bill Carroll right there. He gave us 3 minutes on a team that's not playing.
Did you miss me? Did you miss me?
So it's fantastic, man.
So amongst the surviving AFC teams, they are, to me, rather predictably, we've been here before, right? Yeah, and it's the Chiefs who will, just for your knowledge, we'll be here again next year with the Chiefs. And the Bengals have a shot to be there again next year too. But when I think about Andy Reid and his cornucopia of football knowledge, I feel, this is going to sound crazy, but I feel like he's held back a bunch of good stuff. And he's been holding it back for just this emergency, right? And now stuff that no one's seen before. ever. It's not on tape. It's never. It's no place else. And he may never use these plays again. This might be one use items, but you're going to see some stuff that no one has ever seen.
Yeah.
And Lou Anarumo, who is a terrific defensive coordinator, I'm going to give him his flowers. I thought the Bengals defense last year was solid, good, and I thought they'd be about the same this year. Their coaching, the players are still largely the same, but their coaching of their defense has taken a big jump up. You see players seeing things faster. You see players being in the right place, being in the proper gap, being at the proper depth, proper leverage over and over and over and over again, almost never making mistakes, rarely making mistakes. That's coaching. Hats off to, but I think they're going to, there's a Chinese term in martial arts, and it translates roughly to the novice beating the master with disorderly punches, right? You expect to be attacked a certain kind of way and are very prepared for it.
Yeah.
I think Kansas City is going to do a bunch of very strange things that the Bengals have not seen. These teams play each other a lot, right? And so I think Andy Reid is sacrificed. I shouldn't say sacrificed, but I think he wanted to win all those games. But I think he really wants to win this one. I mean, really wants to win this one. And so some of that special little nuggets that he's been saving and looking over, when's the right time for, oh, this is the right time. And so you're going to see stuff, wild, crazy things. And I just think that they come out with about a 4-point victory. I think the Bengals play extremely well. I think the Bengals play a damn near perfect game, but it's not enough.
All right, I'll do that game then. And we're kind of in lockstep. I actually think, though, this is going to come down to Chris Ford. Chris Ford? That's what I'm thinking about?
I think you're talking about Chris Jones.
Chris Jones. Sorry. I knew Chris Ford was wrong. I feel like it's an old white Boston Celtic guard, right?
Yes.
I knew in my mind I had the wrong guy, but I knew his name was Chris. Chris Jones.
Well, I think you're thinking about D Ford, who used to be on the team a couple of years ago, and combining him with Chris.
That's what I did. Okay. All right. So see, that's why you got to have Bill here for those stuff. So I think Chris Jones is going to be a difference maker. Cincinnati has been, I got two good Bengal fan friends, unfortunately. Sorry, Brian. Sorry, Dan. That I think they've been on borrowed time with this offensive line. And I think that I will also say they have pissed off Patrick Lamar. I don't know if Lamar's the middle name. Is that right?
Levon.
Patrick Levon Mahomes. See, again, I knew Bill was going to come through. Patrick Levon Mahomes is not happy about all the, we're after dark, all the shit they've been talking.
Right. The Burrowhead Stadium.
Like, do y'all know who Andy Reid is? Have you met Andy Reid, by the way? And have you met Patrick Levon Mahomes? So I think this is I think it's a good game. I think we're going to get two really good games tomorrow. Yes. But I do like Kansas City in a very close game. I think that Chris Jones is the difference maker. When we look at the game in its totality, we're going to say Chris Jones is the reason, is not Mahomes and all of the weapons. Travis Kelce's a badass, by the way. But yes, I think I'm going to go with Chris Jones is going to be the difference maker. Mahomes and Kelce are going to do their part. Chris Jones is going to wreak havoc on a still patchwork offensive line that has gotten them by somehow, which I don't understand, but we'll find out. I like Kansas City in very close game.
Yep.
I also like Kansas City. I think Bill always talks about the glue guys.
Yeah. Bill Carroll glue guys. Yeah.
Pacheco.
McKinnon. Thornhill.
McKinnon. And is anybody astonished by what the hell they've done with Scanlon and Juju Smith-Schuster?
Darius
couldn't catch a damn thing in Pittsburgh. All of a sudden,
here we go. It always comes.
Well, that's not true. He was in the running for Rookie of the Year. What are you talking about, James?
Yeah. And how long? And how long ago was he a rookie?
Well, that was a while back.
Yeah,
he had Antonio Brown drawing coverage, so it was relatively easy. When Antonio Brown was gone, it was not quite so easy for him. I get that. Yeah.
But as I said, I'm looking for Kansas City to pull this out in a close game, and if Patrick Mahomes can stay upright for 4 quarters, I definitely think it'll be much easier for the Bengals. So let's talk about this the NFC game, Bill?
They're both tight, but this one's even harder for me. I have gone round and round and round and round and round. The slightly better roster, and I usually end up going with rosters. The slightly better roster is the 49ers. But, right? Something about this Eagles team just won't let go of me. I feel like they somehow have talked themselves into feeling disrespected, which Philadelphians, as a whole manage to do, whether it's real or imagined. And the team really does take on the personality of this city. I mean, they really do. More than any other team I could think of, they've taken on the personality of their city. And they have the perfect coach. Not the perfect coach as he's a perfect football coach, but could there be a more Philadelphia football coach than Nick Sirianni, who at times I've seen go at the other team's fans? You know what I mean? So what's more Philadelphia, right? Than the coach whips off his headset after a tight win, runs over to the stands, and starts basically challenging people to meet him in the parking lot. What could be more Philadelphia Eagles than that? I think that you mentioned sort of getting away with it, right? But my father's old statement about if you run around in the rain long enough, eventually you get wet. Brock Purdy, to his credit, has played, for a guy that was a scout team quarterback not that long ago, is playing off the charts well. But I just have a feeling that some of the wheels come off that particular wagon this week. I don't think he plays poorly, mind you. I just think that those little hesitation moments right before he throws the football, where he's sort of gotten away with it, right? Catch up with him. I think those little hesitation moments where he's feeling, well, should I throw it here? Should I throw it there? Hassan Reddick, you mentioned Chris Jones. I'm going to give you my guy, the guy I think tilts the game. Hassan Reddick from Temple, of all places, right? Temple University, goes out in the desert, Arizona, and they try to make him to a real linebacker. The fools! He's not a real linebacker. He's one of the best situational pass rushers the world's ever seen, though.
Yep.
He can play 40% of the snaps and have 16 sacks.
Yep.
If he gets a good jump, if he comes off the ball, if he times it right, I don't know that anybody can block him. He's it's literally like watching an actual sprinter. I mean, we talk about track stance, but he's like a sprinter. His first 3 steps, Tyreek Hill's faster, but not as much faster as you think he would be, right? For the first 3 steps. He's almost impossible to get an angle on. You've got to cheat. You've got to slide somebody else over there, something. Because if not, he's going to hit your quarterback.
Right.
May not sack him, but he'll hit him.
Yep. So this gets easy because Bill's right for the most part. I'm going to agree with 2 things wholeheartedly, and then I'm going to river dance on his 3rd point. So the first one is go with the roster. It's easy. Just pick the best roster. And he's right. They got the best roster, right? Yeah. Second point, Cinderella Purdy. It's midnight, baby. It's midnight. Time for you to take your ass home and clean out the closets or whatever. You scrub the floors. I believe Cinderella Purdy. Now, in full joking mode, there is no team that reflects their coach more than the Detroit Lions reflect one Dan Campbell. That's the only thing I'm going to disagree.
I knew he was going to get that. We got Steelers and Lions in.
Right. We're an hour and 30 into this thing, and I haven't referenced that team one time. So
well done, sir. Your restraint is admirable.
Everything Detroit could ever want in a football coach, and that team has taken on it. Now, he's absolutely right about Sirianni. Sirianni, if he wasn't born in Philadelphia, he could lie to people and tell them he was, and they'd believe him. I believe him because he does really reflect that. And he'd be a close second to me. Dan Campbell is Detroit, and Detroit is Dan Campbell. That's my only thing there. But no, I like the Eagles in another very good game because I think that, and by the way, it's a whole side note, but kind of tangentially attached. We did a mock draft. Bill Carroll does a mock draft last April. Somewhere in the 6th or 7th, one of the guys selected James Houston, right? And Bill Carroll said on the podcast, not blowing smoke, we're already friends, I don't need to blow smoke. He said, there's a place in the league for this guy. If a team uses him right, he will be a valuable pass rusher in this league. I'm here to tell you guys, he played 6 games in Detroit and had 8 sacks. He was, when he's talking about Hassan Reddick, my mind is, that's James Houston. He's talking about James Houston right now. And he said it 8 months ago in a mock draft. So I don't mind giving him credit, not just because that guy's a lion. Everything he said about Hassan Reddick, that the first step, and there's this leverage and bend and all the stuff Bill knows that I don't. Gratuitous mention of James Houston. Everything he said about Hassan Reddick, that's what James Houston is. And it's a great thing to watch. So, yeah, I like the Eagles and I like the Chiefs. Those are my picks. Yeah.
Well, I agree with the Chiefs, but like you said, we got to look at the roster. And I like the 49ers. Yeah. And this is not a Brock Purdy. This is all about the 49ers defense.
Oh, their defense is ridiculous.
And as you know, we went into Wednesday, I predicted that, Bosa would get at least 2 sacks and Fred Warner would get at least 1. And I think that they will keep Hurts under wrap. I'm not putting my eggs in a Brock Purdy basket, but I will split them between Nick Bosa and Fred Warner.
Yeah, it's a good I will call for at least 1 interception from former Detroit Lion Darius Slay Jr.
There we go.
That'll be my prediction.
So hey, it'll be good to talk this Wednesday, and we'll know who will be going to the Super Bowl.
I think that bet the under on the NFC game. I think both defenses really put their thumb on the offenses. Yeah.
Well, if you notice, things have changed because Wednesday, when I put up the odds from DraftKings, the Bengals were actually 2.5-point favorites.
They were, yep.
Now it's changed where the Chiefs are back as the favorites. I think when I looked yesterday, it might have been a 1-point favorite or a 2-point favorite. But they don't have that home field 3 points that
was simply Andy announcing that Mahomes is going to play, right?
That
moves the line that much.
All the smart money came in on Kansas City before that.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, hey, man, don't say that we can't have a show whenever we get ready, damn it. So
you send up the bat signal, and that's what happens.
All right, guys. Have a great rest of your day, man. Watch a little basketball and whatnot, a little college basketball. And I know we'll all be in front of our TV tomorrow. So have a good
day, Bill. Love that tie, bro.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
All right, see you guys Wednesday.
And give all my love to who, sir.
Exactly. Yeah. Absolutely. Appreciate it, guys.
All right, guys. Talk to you later. Have a good one.
Take care. Look at us.
Bill, you around Monday?